Hi, welcome everyone to the second episode of Legends and Lore. I'm Anna B. Meyer, and with me is.
I'm Mike Bridges. How
Hi,
y'all
welcome
doing?
everyone to the second episode of Legends
Let's
and
see.
Lore.
Where are we starting off today? Anna, you have some announcements?
Yeah, first I had to kill off the audio in the background. Sorry about that. We're still learning the ropes here, and
Huh.
things are new, and there's a lot of techie things to try and remember and get everything to up and running here. So, yep. Today, I'll talk a little bit about. Well, first we have to talk. You, Mike, what you've been up to at the moment with Greyhawk
What have I
stuff.
been up to?
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot. Let's see. Today I was starting to fiddle with a new article I'm going to be putting up on my blog, Grayhawkery. I'm just, I guess, a sneak preview. Then I'm doing a study and be talking about theocracies of the Flan
Ooh.
AS.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of trying to locate the best places for your cleric character
So
to
you
come
you're
out of.
going to go to the Pales and a
Yeah,
bunch of others.
yeah.
Oh,
The
that's
good, the
awesome.
bad, and everything in between.
Yeah, yep. Oh, that's
Yeah,
really cool. So it'll be from Veluna to the old. I don't know what's the most evil
yeah. Even
theocracy.
Dimray. I didn't forget Dimray.
That's true.
KC.
Yep.
Yeah.
The those kind of really devoted ones up in the northeast. Yep. Oh, that's really cool.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'll have another installment of the Castle Greyhawk webcomic out in a week or so.
Oh, that I look forward to that.
That's starting to wind down. We're in the fifth chapter. It's been going on for probably 5 years. So you'll have to check out the links to that from my blog. It's a very long story about, yes, Castle Greyhawk.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Casper writes it, and it's about the early years of uh, kind of Greyhawk, like based on Gary Gygax's original adventure. So you got characters like Tenzer and Robilar and stuff like that.
Yeah. It ties really well into what we're going to be the main thing focus for this episode, how to get into Greyhawk. So if you want to know the old stories, the old characters and stuff from Greyhawk lore, Mike and their comics are awesome way to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. You get to know it in a fun, interesting, cool way. Yep, that's really cool.
What do you
Okay.
got going on, Anna?
I have first. Right now. It's the past 2 months have been horribly busy here at the Map HQ, so to speak. It's been I have two projects now. I'm going to be a bit of a heretic and say that I
Ooh.
have two Midgard project. One is almost complete, that I hope that if just the other Kobold crew can give me the ley lines, so now I'm fishing for the ley lines, then Southlands and the rest, then we can wrap that up, and I bet there's a whole bunch of Kobold fans that will be very interested in that one.
Hmm.
And there is also a new future project ramping up for Midgard that will be my main commission for next year. It's
Oh,
starting to ramp up. So that one is in the initial phases. So that has been kind of half my time had been devoted to that lately. But the other half is been devoted for Greyhawk, either directly because I'm wrapping up. So the third installment of the preview of the 2018 edition with the new terrain edit and all that will go out to my Patreon backers in a couple of days, and that will have
cool.
maybe 50 or 70 new places and settlements and stuff, and some edit updates and stuff on it as well. So that's one thing, but the main focus on for Greyhawk and for my mapping in general is that I'm looking into and nailing down how I'm going to use geographical information systems in the future. And that's the biggie, because I'm moving from doing maps the amateur way when you sit and paint one picture, and then I started using 3D so I can get a terrain that looked kind of cool from the top down. But now the new generation of mapping, I will use fully professional tools, meaning it will be a map with all the data and stuff that can be used in many, many, many different ways. So that's the big thing. I'm starting to nail down the standards, and so they can be useful, what tools to use, and how end users are going to use it in the future. So it's a lot of database things, projections, coordinate systems, and things that don't really have anything to Greyhawk when you normally perceive it. A fantasy world not supposed to have that. But when it comes to making a map useful, it's a bit like when you have a virtual tabletop tool and you want to use, or a character manager, and you want to put the data from the player's handbook or something in so it can be used in a computer.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm facing with geographical data. Yeah.
Anna is next level mapping. She's
Yep. So that's
way
the
above
big,
me.
yeah, big thing. So we're going to have an episode in like a month or so, or two. Then I
Yeah.
can have more to show, and there will be a blog post, and there will be some of course there will be a number of articles and stuff for my patrons when I'm going to dig into the technical side of things. But some of the highlights, what you can do when you have it, is that you can, first of all, you can calculate things like the road distance from one city to another is something that you get for free when
Hmm.
you have it. And other things are you can filter things so they only appear at certain scales. You can also put in like things like how many people live in a certain city or settlement, and then you can automatically get population
Just
levels of all the settlements in a country automatically if you want to. And so basically every object
hmm.
becomes a part in a
It's like a
database.
map wiki.
Yeah, exactly. It would be like a Excel spreadsheet or database spread
Wow.
out geographically.
Hmm.
And things will also have GPS coordinates, which means that you can store GPS coordinates for something and have it pop up in your own version of the map in the future.
Yeah, if there's anything the World of Greyhawk maps have that other setting maps doesn't have, that's coordinates.
Yeah. Yep. So that's the thing. So and the problem is that coordinates need to have a standard, so to speak. So I'm actually going
Hmm.
to cheat and use the Earth standards.
Yes.
Yeah, because that means that all the tools will work, so I don't have to invent and do the tools myself. So that's one of the things
Uh,
that I'm deciding. And
Wing
also,
Horizon
yeah.
says you're looking for minions.
Yes, I'm looking
Yeah.
for minions. Yes, I'm looking for minions.
Yeah.
Yep. That will
Minions.
be minion work in the future that needs to be done. Once everything is set up and so we have all the standards set up and have it
And she
working,
turns it loose.
then it's putting the data in there because they need to be compatible with a bunch of things. And Alan Grow is one guy. He's working on a parallel project to this because he's going to put
Yeah.
in a lot of the module information, like locations and all the
Oh
stuff
wow.
from modules, and list that.
Well, isn't that kind of spoiler info?
Oh,
Just teasing, but isn't that kind of spoilerish?
I don't know. Yeah, it's something, but he talked about
It's
it
a
really
DM
cool.
tool.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
cool in Flanny's Geographical Society. So Alan and me, we are going to try and make sure, as to the best of our abilities, that we can actually make our data sets match. So one will
Oh
be
man.
useful by the other, so to speak. That's one thing that is really important, and also to put in, for me, to put in hooks for various rule systems so you can actually use the rules for Pathfinder, for D&D 5th, and so on, and they will match the data sets. That's another of these things that I have to make sure that. So it's a lot of thinking. So when I go to work, I'm actually doing it the proper way. So I've been doing that
Nice.
the last about year or so working on. Now it's coming into the phase of actually gearing up to do it. So I've studied a lot of manuals. I've read projections. I've done a lot of sketching of Earth and where. So I know where the Flannies actually is located. So when I start mapping it, so I don't have to move it around, it will be in the right spot. So these are
I think
things
you're in
that.
a good spot where your projects don't take 10 years at least.
Well, I think this one will take 5 years at least. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
hey,
this is a 5 year
just like that.
project at least.
Okay.
Yeah, depending with the current
To
support from
get
Patreon, that means that I can work about 2 days, 1 or 2 days a week on it. That
okay.
means it will probably take about 5, 6 years. I take something like that. But on the other hand, if I get more Patreon support, I can do it
Right.
in less time because then I can devote more time to it. So yeah. So
Right.
that's the part, and also how much minion help down the line. But first, things need to be set up, and then when the standards are up, people can start reading through the thing and put in Excel spreadsheets and stuff with the data in there. So yep. So that was my big announcement that is the standards are being set now. So yep.
Yeah. and it definitely has expertise, cartography skill. Yes.
Well, I try to yeah, it's the matching the fantasy with the technology, so to speak. So one leg in the fantasy artistic world and one leg in the kind of technical standards
Yeah.
coordinate 3D kind of yeah thing. And I kind of love that kind of split in between there is really cool. So that was yeah, that was the kind of ramping up. And one thing I can say that the goal with this is there are two main goals with doing this, or three. First is that you don't I shouldn't have and others shouldn't have to have enter data more than once. So you can do all sorts of different maps, views, scales, styles, and stuff without having to re-enter the data. So we can produce way more maps with just reusing the data.
Yeah,
That
fewer chances for error
yeah,
that way.
exactly. Once they're corrected, all the maps using that data will be corrected, and you can produce them faster and merge data and so on and so forth. So that's goal number one. Goal number two is that the data will be used, they will be open source tools, meaning the data will be available for anyone to just download and work on themselves. They can add and tweak and do whatever they want with it. That's number two, and there will be versions of this, and QGIS, that will be my main tool for this, is an open source tool. So meaning anyone can download QGIS, and I will try and provide a special setup for it that hides all the advanced functions. So if you just want to use the maps, you can download my preset, and you will just get the layers and the buttons that turn on and off the layers, and you can zoom around and you don't have to worry about screwing it up.
So all this info though will be on your
Yeah,
blog
yeah, exactly. My
information when
patrons will
that
be the
comes out.
first one
Okay.
to test it out and work out all the kinks and stuff,
All right.
and pay me to work out to be the beta testers and get access to it. And then down the line, that more and more will be brought over, and when it's ready, it will be available for everybody. And the
Excellent.
full data sets will be available, and people can download QGIS for free, and they can tweak it and do whatever they want with it, so to speak. So it will be so anyone can use it and create their own version of Greyhawk for their own personal campaign. That's goal number two. And the third goal is that these are standards that are compatible with all the other map tools out there. So you can you can use it to make overlays in like Google Maps, Bing Maps, and a whole bunch of other map services. You can export the data and put overlays and use like web services with layered maps and all that. It opens up a whole range of interesting possibilities that way. So those are the main goals that this will lead up to in a few in the years to come.
All
Yeah.
right.
hmm
Um,
Do we have
okay. For
any questions or
today,
yeah?
though,
Yep.
I was going to say we have a main topic we're covering today, and I've already kind of taken notes on a couple questions that have been thrown out in chat
Perfect.
that we'll get back to. Uh, but we were the goal of today is to kind of get out of the way a really important topic, which is the like I would call the Grayhawk primer. Uh,
hmm
both of our recommended products and information for running a World of Greyhawk campaign.
How to get
Uh,
into it? Yep.
yeah, the map is obviously a very important step in that. And there's you can use Anna's maps, or you can use some of
Darlene
the
maps,
older
or you
Darlene
can
maps.
or the
Yeah.
Terlissi map that was done by Paiso, the Paiso Hawk map.
All right,
Yep.
but so once you have a map in hand, then you need the information that goes with it. Uh, let's see. How do you want to start on this?
Well, we have the first. I think we should kind of nail it down to meaning when you approach a setting. I've only done it real once, so I don't have a kind of a I haven't done it often, so I might be the completely the
All
wrong
right.
person to talk about this, but it's first you depending on the style, the setting might just be a curious little backdrop that gives a tint to
Okay.
your adventure, so to speak, and then
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
then you
yeah.
don't have to dig that deep. You can read the
Okay.
superficial things and add the gods and a few places,
Hmm.
and it's perfect. You already have your adventures. You can just find a home for your adventures and you run it, and they will or they will be it will just be a backdrop for your adventures. That's one way of doing it. Or you can go whole hog and realize I want to have a world simulation. I want to run a sandbox and I want to play out Greyhawk and the adventurers will find themselves in the setting.
Right.
Then you need to dig much deeper into it. But Greyhawk is actually you can take it the whole way from just a flavor to your adventures, or it can be a full world simulation, so to speak.
So yes, like was mentioned in chat, it's an overwhelming topic, and there are some good starting points.
Yep.
The easiest thing to do, though, is to first bring up what the essential book is you need, or book or products,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily books. Um, there's two two routes I think you could go with this because uh, in chat when Horizon mentioned the village of Hamlet,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah,
Yep.
if you're going to start local, you can start with one of these adventures, and there's a couple that are like real low level, localized, like village of Hamlet, town of Saltmarsh. The sinister secret of Saltmarsh is a good starter adventure, and then from there you can like explore outwards. Now, uh, but going back to the world overall, that goes with your map. Um, my number one product will always be the World of Greyhawk box set. Okay, you need the World of Greyhawk box set, I believe, to be a true Greyhawk fan. This,
Yes. Oh, you have the
all right,
box too. That kind of collapsed
yeah,
for
I
me.
still have the box
I only have
and two
the
books.
gazetteers and the two books, and the maps are sitting
Yeah,
stacked away here. Yep.
right.
Yep.
Um, it is a real, I don't want to say basic, but it's a framework of that world. It gives you just enough, as a dungeon master, it gives you enough information to run the big picture without burdening you down with details. Uh, and then from there, you can go off into different directions with these other products, which we would recommend that then uh, develop the setting further. Uh, okay, yeah, I'm seeing here they're mentioning Living Greyhawk. So, like what I'm
Yes.
mentioning, yeah. So once you have the box set, the timeline,
Mm-hmm.
the published timeline proceeds,
Yeah.
and so then you run into various topics which update the setting. The first one, I guess, would be
From the
uh,
Ashes. That's
From the
the
Ashes.
next box set that basically replicates the original box set, but set
Right.
10 years
It's a
later
red.
with yeah.
That's a red box set.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um,
So they
and
basically do. Yeah. Well,
then
sorry. Go on. Mm-hmm.
no, yeah. From the Ashes is the aftermath of the Greyhawk Wars, which is not a. It, I believe that's not an essential book to have.
I agree. Yep.
The lore in it is top notch. I think it plays out. I think okay, but from the Ashes, where you see the aftermath of the Greyhawk Wars and how some of the countries changed that were in your original box set.
If you want to know what happened in the from the Ashes, you can get Adventure Begins, because that tells it in much better. So you get the original box set and you get Adventure Begins. That way that will actually describe more in literary form what happened during the for the era of the Greyhawk Wars in I think in a great way, because I've only read a lot of the different sources during the when they actually published the From the Ashes and stuff, and I there was a lot of things I hadn't put two and two together, and then when Adventure begins, then I got the whole picture, so to speak. So those
Yeah.
two, that if you want to advance, you might want to stay with the what they call the classic era of Greyhawk, the 576 era, and a lot
Right.
of gamers, they stay there and they love their era and they don't
I'm
go.
one of those people.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm, yep,
From the Ashes, and here's the distinction: the classic Gygax box set is got a military theme. Gygax was a war gamer, so it has a lot of stuff about the backdrop of wars and militaries and all this stuff.
yep,
And then, yeah, there are dungeons and other things sprinkled everywhere. From the Ashes was written by Carl Sargent, and this is more of a dark and evil world. Like all these countries now are overrun by
yep,
undead and
mm-hmm,
whatnot.
yep,
And so, getting back to the original point, there are different posts along the way of this timeline where you can like even start your campaign. So you can
yep.
start with the box set. You can start with From the Ashes. You can also start from the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer,
Yes, the
which,
biggest Bible
yeah,
of Greyhawk. If you want the maximum number of content in one product, this is the one to get.
yeah, that's the last and most recent update to the
Yep,
setting,
yep. Cost
and
13 bucks in at drive-through RPG in PDF format. And all of the ones we've talked about so far are available at drive-through RPG as PDF. And there will be a link to, I put together a PDF folder with all the links and all the prices and stuff to all the products that we will talk about here. So yeah.
um, so setting wise, yeah, if you really want to dig deep into the sandbox of the setting, like was mentioned, then you want to pick your starting point.
Yep.
Beginning,
Mm-hmm.
I would liken it to beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, Beyond that, there's a lot of good in between material. Um, One of my favorites is and almost as valuable as the box set itself, if I can remember, is the City of Greyhawk
Yep.
box
Mm-hmm.
set.
Yep.
Um, this City of Greyhawk is, of course, what the this whole setting is named after.
Yep. It's a
This is,
centerpiece kind of the setting in a way.
yeah,
Yep. And it's
it's an
also located
urban,
in the middle. Yeah. And it's really
right?
a fantasy city with all the bells and whistles of a fantasy city.
I like them. Right. So there's just so much adventure and whatnot centered just around this one city that this box set with its own really gorgeous city map, that's all you really need
Mm-hmm.
uh, if you want to start a localized campaign. And the City of Grok box set also kind of gets updated as you go along in
Yep.
some of the other
Mm-hmm.
books,
Yep.
like new rulers and
Mm-hmm.
NPCs and
Yep.
whatnot. Let's see. What else you have on accessories?
Then we have,
Accessories.
I think we should mention, if you want to go full sandboxy, there are a couple of, or three or four products that you just need to have. And I'm going to give the first, I think the two main ones.
Gem of the
Yeah,
Finance.
and these are the source books that goes deep into the setting. And one is the Marklands that talk about the good lands of Greyhawk, the Furiundi and the Kingdom of Nyrond
Ah, yep,
and the
yep.
surroundings. So, and this is one of the mainstays. If you want to know about the good center heart of the Flanies and know the politics, the land, the rulers, the customs, the churches, the temples, and all that stuff, it's in here. And there's also some character things, meaning artifacts and magic items and stuff like that. That's one of these gems, so to speak. And then the other one, then we go to the evil side, and that's the I use the evil, and that's the other one that
Yeah.
tells the and
Let me
these.
jump in here,
Yeah,
Hannah, real
please
quick.
do.
At the end of this, we will have all this stuff listed
Yes,
on a link
yeah,
for you.
there will be a
Don't worry
link.
about
Yep.
the space here. We're
Mm-hmm.
just throwing stuff out.
Yep. Yep.
No, we'll have a list for you.
Yep, there will be a list, a PDF
Shopping
with the
list.
shopping list with the prices and links
Yeah.
to all of it. So yep,
Yeah.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
use the
I
evil
use the
as
evil
the
as my
it.
Bible too.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's just like Markland's, but it's the
Hmm.
main villain of the setting. I
There's
use.
no D&D book I can think of that has more evil in
Yeah,
it
yeah.
than that book.
This one is absolutely fantastic. It's a second
Yeah.
edition book, so if you want to use it with fifth edition and Pathfinder or whatever rule system, that's
The
another topic
information never
for
gets outdated.
exactly. It doesn't get
So,
outdated. It's
no,
easily
no.
convertible to anything, any D&D
Yeah.
or D&D related rule system, so to speak. So, and it's this book is one of my absolute favorites. It's fantastic. It's if you want to run an evil cult or sect or something, this has a lot of information. But
If
it's
you put the Book of Foul Darkness next to I Use the Evil,
yes,
then I think
then you have
just
a fantastic. This
huh,
you can have adventuring for years with this one. Yeah. So these are the two, and then there's another one that is
Tinder.
was never printed that I want to talk about in the same. The two others, and one
Oh yeah,
is
they're
the Ivid the Undying. In that is actually downloadable for free as a PDF. Will
for
be on the
free.
list, so for free, so it doesn't cost a
If
penny.
you want to run anything in the Great Kingdom, kind of
Yes,
like
yeah,
Danny's doing
mm-hmm.
on the
Yeah,
Dying
or
Kingdom on
like
Greg Channel,
United Kingdom of
you need
Alyssa
that.
afterwards, or the North Kingdom that come afterward, or
Yeah.
doing the turmoil when the Great Kingdom fell apart. That's the book to get, and it's equally good quality. It's the politics, the cults, the places, the stories. It's fantastic. This is
Don't ask me why it never got published. It's a
ex-
travesty.
yeah, it's a travesty. Yeah, because that's one of the best role RPG supplements ever produced. I think it's up with along with these ones. And then
Leakum says he has all those books. Well, Leakum, do you have three of these? Three of these?
I only have one. Yep. And there's one other that I want to put to these kind of quartet of mainstay, and that's the Scarlet Brotherhood. It's up there in the somewhere, but I don't want to upset my dog too much because then she will start whining. So it's up there, and so
Attaboy.
yeah. So Scarlet Brotherhood is another one that also that completes another part of Greyhawk. And if you have all these
By
four
Sean
books,
K. Reynolds.
yep. And it's a fantastic book. It's the same. It has all the cultural, the
It opens
politics.
up the
Yeah.
south part of the map.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
most of the stuff written that we've
Yep.
mentioned right now deals with like the central lands, I
Yep.
would say.
Yep.
And so this opens up the south, which
Yep.
is really nice.
Yep. And it you have monks and
Yes, the
there's a lot
medieval
of
and
exotic
yeah.
things there that are not standard your old medieval knightly fantasy. The
Oh yeah.
Scarlet Brotherhood opens up new things, espionage, monkdoms, yeah, also so other sides to the Flannies and Greyhawk that is amazing. That really kind of complements the central part of the setting. So those are if you want to go full sandboxy, these are the books that you need, so to speak. That yeah.
That's all. Just those.
Yeah, yeah. And then there are some sprinkled in kind of cool little
Oh yeah.
extras that you can dig into. And now since they're in PDF forms, they cost from the most expensive one is the
Oh yeah.
Living Greyhawk Gazetteer. That is what is it, 196 pages or something like that. Hang on a second.
It's
Yeah,
pretty
it's kind of
thick,
hefty. It's soft
but
bound.
it's
It's
all fluff.
192 pages, and it's soft bound.
Fluff.
And that one costs $13 at Drive Through RPG. That's the most expensive ones. The other ones cost like $5, $6, $8. So you can get in for it doesn't cost too much
Sure.
to get it in PDF form.
There was a 16-page Living Greyhawk Gaz before the real one
Exactly,
got
a
released.
short little one that was more like a
Hmm.
little, yeah, a little brief that had
Teaser.
a map, a teaser, yeah, that had a map that had like 1/10 of the information of the big ones. But if you
Mm.
get the big one, you don't need the little brief prelude to it.
Let's see. What we
Yeah.
missing anything? What?
Well, we have. There's a couple of one that I mentioned before is The Adventure Begins. It's another one. I think it's about
Oh yeah. Yeah.
100 page, 98 pages, or 100 or something like that. And that one is also, but it's more written a little bit more towards the player, but it's mainly, I would say, something that the DM should read rather than the player. But it's more the stories, and it
Mm-hmm.
describes the war, but you get a lot of flavor for it. You get a lot
Oh
of what the
yeah.
rulers are up to. You get a lot of
It has stuff in there
politics and
like
stuff. Yeah.
holidays and
Exactly. A
things.
lot of culture, things that you can reuse, meaning what's happening. You have what's happening during the week. When do people pray? When do they have? When they do they go out and dress up funny and make mayhem on town around town and stuff like that
Um,
too.
to answer Wing Horizon, everything we mentioned so far is useful, 100% useful.
Yeah.
Swag wise, anything that we leave out, I would say is optional.
Yeah.
And that, as for adventures set in the world of Greyhawk, I don't know if we're going to go into modules or
I
not.
have one that I
You want
and
one?
that's the
Okay.
Temple of Elemental Evil, that
All right.
that one that starts in the
Hamlet.
village of Hamlet and then goes through the
Okay.
Temple of Elemental. That's the only adventure module that I put on my list, because first, that's the only one I've ever actually DM'd and played in.
It's
So that's the
well,
one
it's
reason.
also the only one that actually kind of
The
has a setting to
Yes,
it.
the only one that I think is fully immersed in Greyhawk
Mm-hmm.
flavor, because it has
Sure.
a Cuthbert temple, and it has the yeah, so it
Mm-hmm.
has a fully Greyhawk vibe to it. It's really integrated with the setting. A lot of the other adventures
Ooh.
are, they could happen anywhere. They're not Greyhawk specific, but the
Irony Golem says he in chat says he's rebuilding the Temple of Element for fifth edition.
yeah, there are,
Very
yeah,
interesting.
and Temple of Elemental Evil have been out in at least three different versions that I know of.
Yeah.
There might be a fourth one. You have the
Uh,
first, you have the first ones. First, it was released in three different. It was the Millet of Hamlet, and then it was
yeah.
the what it was called, that the first moat house, and
Yeah.
the Nolb, and then it was the temple itself. So it was like
Yeah.
three different
Put it all
adventures.
together.
Yeah, and they put it all together and added some. That was the first edition of the
Yeah.
Temple of Elemental Evil. And then it was the Return to Temple of Elemental Evil that came out as part of third edition. I remember, I think it was, and that was, then they introduced Tharizdun, and we need to go into
Mm.
deities and gods in the future, but they introduced
Yeah.
him into the
Okay.
fray all of a sudden. But that's so that, and that has a different flavor. I don't like it as much, but it's, if you're a fan of and want to go back, it's a cool one. And then there was a version for, I think, for they did one for the new Adventures League. They made a new
Hmm.
one when they brought it back. So it's been around for it. Or
I
fifth
didn't follow
edition.
that.
Yeah, they took it into, and they put it in Forgotten Realms. So they stole that one, which is the one of the most Greyhawk iconic locations. They stole it to Forgotten Realms.
Oh, hi, Nakara. Says Temple Elemental's being built in a 3D
Yes,
tool.
yeah, we have been, I've been fiddling around with the model like
Hmm.
10 years ago, and that was the first,
Ooh.
the kind of, and now Linda is 10 times better than me, so she's been working on it, and it's starting to look
Hey.
awesome. So, and that was one of the, now she spilled the beans on this, and it's because we are working on city maps and stuff in the future. So once we have the
Yes.
large overland, we want to move into city mapping. So yeah.
Bavix is right in chat. He Wizard of the Coast
Hmm.
does strip mine the
Yep.
World of Greyhawk.
Yep. They
And we
have.
could go on a rant
We
here.
yeah, we
Temple of
could have a
Elemental
whole
Evils
episode on
especially.
this. Yep. Yeah, but that
Uh,
was kind of
but
especially sad when they did that. But it shows
it's part of
the
the reason why we're doing this
hmm
is we want to kind of bring it back, you know, so people know what the real deal
yep.
is.
And let me shift the screens here so we can show a little bit what we have. We have one
All
more
right.
thing here, and it's called Monster Mythology. It's one of the extras. If you want to be kind of cool flavory, it's a second edition product that I kind of like in a way. It's one of these extras. It was one of these blue book accessories. I think I have it here over somewhere, but it's
Oh,
available at drive-through, and it has a
yeah.
whole bunch of cool gods. It had orc gods, goblin gods, some demons, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it was part of AD&D's general series, but it's very Greyhawk specific because almost all the
I
gods.
didn't own that one till very recently. Can you
Yeah,
believe that?
yeah, no, that
Somehow
you
it
should have
slipped
brought
by
it
me.
right away. That was fantastic. You have all sorts of.
Yeah.
That's one of my absolute favorites. And now it's available for $10 at Drive-Thru RPG, which is a steal because that one is fantastic. Yep.
Hmm.
So that's the.
Uh, it's not really a monster man. I think there's. It's literally about the deities of every
Yes.
basic
Yep.
of the monsters that are in the
Yeah.
Monster
Yeah.
Manual,
It's
like
they're
centaur
all.
gods and
Mm-hmm.
giant gods
Yep.
and stuff like.
Yep. And
Yeah,
they're orc gods and goblin
yeah.
gods
What Ryan
and some
said.
of them are demons and stuff like that. So they all these kind of really high powered creatures that you want to have ruling at the like big enemies and stuff in campaigns. It's awesome. So yeah. And
And
also for
that
you
book's
and you have
yeah.
cleric rules. If you want to run clerics of various from these humanoid clerics and of various kinds, drow and all sorts of ones, you have the rules for them in there, and
Yeah, I was
spells
gonna
and stuff.
say, given today's versions of D&D with new playable races and whatnot, that book probably does come in more handy now
Yeah,
than it
it
used
requires,
to.
yeah, exactly, and it
Yeah.
requires a little bit of tweaking to get it into to 5e, but with
Hmm.
all the domain lists and stuff that you have for clerics in the later editions of the game, you can take this and then you take some of the artifacts and some of the other stuff that I mentioned in there, and you can have a lot of cool things. And also for NPCs, master NPCs can be clerics, high level clerics and
Mm.
stuff for these temples and cults and whatnot. So it's one of these books that I think could be really cool to flesh out a campaign with. And we have one other extra. If you want to
One more.
yeah, one more. If we want some more flavor
Mhm.
and stuff in Greyhawk, you should get this one.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
Greyhawk Adventures. It's
It's not the prettiest book.
No, it's not.
I also have it.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's going a little bit everywhere. It has a chapter of some spells, it has a chapter of some locations and stuff. So it doesn't have any real adventures in them fully fledged or anything.
Yeah,
It's more
I was
like
gonna
yeah.
say it's a tool. It's
Hmm.
like for me, it's always like this. If I need an idea for a cool location or a cool magic item, that's the first book I pick up
Yep. Hmm.
because I want like I
Yep.
might not use what's actually in the book, but I'm looking for something like that
Yep.
because there's
Hmm.
stuff in that book that you won't find in any other
Yep.
D&D book. Trust me.
Yep. Yep. So it's if you run a sandboxy game, this will give you a lot of Greyhawk flavor
Good
information that
stuff.
is invaluable. And that one is available at drive-through
Yeah, it
for
is
10,
Unearthed
10
Canyon.
bucks as a PDF. So, yep. Written
And I
by J.
recall back when it
Oh,
came out, there was a Forgotten Realm book and a Dragonlance book, like that same
mm-hmm.
hardback series.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know which came first. I'm sure someone in chat knows. But
I read it
yeah,
through. This is the last book that was for
that's
first
one.
edition AD&D ever published. The
Oh,
final
wow.
first edition book, if I remember correctly. So yeah, so they had made Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms had come out, and it was really cool. And then
See, I
this,
don't have either of those, and I'm wondering. I would love to compare them.
I have the Forgotten Realms books, a whole bunch of the setting
Okay.
books for flavor, and they are kind of they are better in some ways than this, especially the production value, because this is just black and white, not much illustration in it
Yeah.
at all. So it's a very if you just sift through it, it's a very boring book like this. It looks like one of the
Yeah.
Unearthed Arcana, some of the really, really early books. But
It's a good book for Easter eggs and stuff
exactly,
like
but the content, the text. So James M. Ward that wrote this
that.
did a fantastic job, but his art budget wasn't that big. But I don't care
Yeah, it's
about that.
recycled.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the book itself is fantastic. It's a gem. It's yeah.
Hmm.
TSR didn't put that much extra money
Okay.
into production, so to speak. But the material in there is fantastic. So that and
Yeah,
then
it
I have
is a
yeah
bridge book.
yeah, and then I have one kind of extra little thing that I want to
One more.
plug. Yeah, just plug a
Okay.
little bit, and that's
One
the
more
Greyhawk
book.
Wars. And it was a board game. And as a board
Yeah.
game, it's kind of useless unless you have 6 friends and you have 2 weeks vacation, because it took
And you
for
really want to mess up great.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And but if you want to play out the Greyhawk Wars and you want to kind of get a feel for it in action, it can be fun. We played it a couple of times and we had a blast.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
And you know what? Every time I played it, uh, Nyrond, I think, won.
Okay. I think we had IUs
Every
took over the
time.
world in our
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
No, I think it was either Furion or Nyrond.
Yeah. But we had some treacherous people on the good side too that kind of
Yeah,
gang up.
it's
Yeah, so it's
Brian Glade.
hmm
It's Greyhawk Risk.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's Greyhawk Risk. That's its model on it, but it doesn't work mechanically as efficient because it takes forever and stuff. But and it has some cool little props and things in it. So to me, it's not something I will go out and pay $100 on eBay to get in paper, but to pay $5 as a PDF, I think it might be worth it because the
I think it was
booklets.
ahead of its time. If
Yes,
they
exactly.
made that now with today's board
Oh,
game
yes. Oh,
technology,
then it would be
oh, it would be
fantastic, I think. Yep. Yep. So they need to release it again, or yeah, something. So yep.
oh yeah. Hmm. Lika mentions Birthright.
Yes,
I would
that's
love to talk about Greyhawk
and Birthright.
combat
Yes,
and
and
mass
we should
combat
have
simulator.
a whole
From
episode on birthrighting Greyhawk and stuff because
yeah, yeah, maybe not
that's
today.
something for the future, definitely to go in and mass combat and kingdom rules and stuff like that. That's something we should
I
go into.
tried that. I
Yeah.
really tried it, and
hmm
it was a lot of bookkeeping.
Yes.
Portfolio.
And that's also something that I think was ahead of its time because with today's
Mm-hmm.
technology, it could be
Sure.
fantastic. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. So that kind of rounds out the list
What you need
of
to get.
products. So it's about a dozen products
Yeah.
that you could kind of
And if you
indulge
just get
yourself with.
even a few of those,
hmm
you're set.
Yeah.
You can, pretty
If you
much write
yeah
your own ticket from
yeah,
there.
and if you only want to get one product that covers as much as possible, I will recommend this one. Or if
Well,
you want to
yeah,
play
it's
in the classic
most bang for the
era,
buck
then you take
for the
the original. Yeah,
maps and
exactly.
things. Yeah,
So
yeah,
these two, it depends on
yeah.
if you want to start out and understand Greyhawk as it was published originally, get this and read through. And or if you want to have one book that covers as much as possible in one volume, then you
Hmm.
get this.
Yeah.
That's my starting advice. And then you go from there, so to speak, from either of those two or both of them.
Wonderful.
Yep. So what questions? What have we not?
Okay, so we're gonna go back to questions now.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, right. Believe. Going back all the way to the beginning here, the show here, Nebula was asking about Castle Greyhawk and whether or not there was like I think he asked something about if Rob Koontz had all the levels, all the dungeon levels. Is there
The
a
problem is
whole
that
Castle Greyhawk
no, there is no
notes?
definitive
No,
Castle Greyhawk product. I think it's from
no,
my
it's not.
understanding that there's a bunch of them. The problem was that when Gary left TSR when it was gearing up to actually produce and release what we will call today, I guess, an adventure path for
Yeah.
for the Castle of Greyhawk. So what they did the first one was they actually did a phony, funny, silly, hilarious version of Castle Greyhawk. That was the
Boo.
first one. Yeah. The only thing that is cool is the title on the picture and image on the front page, the
Yeah.
cover. That's kind of cool. The rest, it's complete crap. So don't
Reminds
even
me
think
of
about it.
Castle Grayskull and He-Man.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I don't
completely
know if you remember
terrible.
that.
Yep. But and then they released, I think, one module that was called Return to the Castle Greyhawk or something in third edition. That was
Uh,
actually that was not that bad. That had some maps in it. That's what I studied and had a bunch of stuff. And then they
there's
have,
Greyhawk Ruins, which
yeah,
is second
exactly, Greyhawk
edition.
Ruins. Yes, that's the one. And then they have
You're thinking
released
of Expedition
to
to the Ruins of Greyhawk,
yes.
which is third edition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they actually released Kuntz, and they released under
Yes.
a complete. They call
Yes.
Igburg, or how did you pronounce that?
Um. Yeah, I don't know. Ixburg, something
Igsburg,
like
or
that.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have released the with and
Castle
it's yeah with
Zagig.
yeah exactly Castle Zagig with its surroundings and so on. But when I look at the map, it doesn't match the original Greyhawk
Oh,
area at all, which is sad because but it's
yeah,
done
I
by
don't know.
Darlene, so it's a very
Oh,
it's a pretty awesome map. The problem is that you can't fit that in with the original Greyhawk map, really. So yeah.
yeah, that's going off
Yeah, then
in
it's
a
kind of
different direction
tangent.
at
Yeah.
that point.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. So
unfortunately.
yeah, so the definitive Castle Greyhawk has never been, with all its dungeons and stuff. It's never really been
Yeah,
produced.
so that's like an impossible
Yeah.
goal to
But
be
the
the
cool thing,
authentic Castle Rock.
yeah, but the cool thing is that also leaves that legendary place for every DM to
Yeah.
dig into and develop the way he or she wants to.
Um, I like the Greyhawk Ruins version.
Yeah.
So if I ran that entire module and then I rewrote it and ran it a second time because I kind of updated the
Yeah.
contents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that was it had terrible maps, but it
Yeah.
was good content.
Yeah, I never ran it, but I've read it through when I did my maps, and I love the area map, and I love the idea with the three towers and the spanning bridges in between. I kind of like that
Hmm.
idea. It was kind of a little bit unique and weird and still functional. So I like that idea. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Um, one of our other questions was about areas of the map that have not been explored fully yet. Are there still any areas that none of our products will accurately cover?
We
Like we
have,
said,
yeah,
the Scarlet Brotherhood, was one of those deals. It
yeah,
covered Hepmonoland and the jungles and
yeah. Let's dig in
what
and take a look
else?
at the map here. So I'm going to see if I can make use of the function I did.
All right.
Yeah. So we have what I would consider the biggest area that is not being. It's the Baklunish West. It's this part here.
Yeah.
This area here is completely kind of not. This area here is not covered by the products at all.
Right.
That's and it's
A lot of the products, like I was saying before, is just rehash
yeah. Mm-hmm.
of
Yep.
a lot of the central
Yep,
lands.
yep. So this is the main area,
Ooh,
and especially the
all
northern
red.
bit here has. So let's me.
Um, really, you could go even farther down to the Sea of Dust.
Oh
I
yes,
mean,
exactly.
what has been written about the Sea of Dust?
Yeah, I was just going to say, but that
Yeah.
is kind of more remote from the Flan East geographically, because you have
Yeah.
to get over a bunch of mountains and all stuff. This part here,
Hmm.
especially the area up here, the northern Sif and Ikbir and Tusmit and Ket are
Yeah.
accessible. So this area here, I would say, has a lot of potential. It's civilized, and there's mountains and wilderness and civilization and developed countries with cities and cultures and gods and all that up here. So that's an
Yeah. If
area
you're
that.
like a fan of Al Qadim or
Hmm.
something,
Yep.
um,
Yep.
like Moose
It's
West, the way to go.
it's perfect. So this area.
Hey,
Yeah.
speaking of the Backlunish West, on Greyhawk Grognard, our good friend Joe Block has a
Yes.
new article out. Go to
Mm-hmm.
his blog. It's his second article. He's been doing some work on the Backlunish West, and he has some new deities that he's created
Mm-hmm.
for the West.
Yep.
And he just put out his second one, I believe,
Yep.
yesterday.
And he has a Patreon
So go
too,
check
so
that
look
out.
into that. And
Yeah,
yep, it's really really cool. And
cool.
he's been doing this for decades. He knows his stuff. So
Yeah.
yep. I'm good at
So that's
math.
one
So
area
yep.
that
And then we have
needs
another one. I
development.
would say that one that is really cool is the Thelonian
Oh
Peninsula.
yeah. All
So
right.
yeah, so
Now
I'm
we're
going.
talking.
Yeah, so I'm going to make a circle around that area. I'm going to include Ratik in that region because it's kind of on the borderland up there. But
All
this
right.
region here has a lot of adventuring potential, and it's close to the Flanies and it's integrated in its stories and social life and campaigning and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
there are no adventure
No.
paths really set up there, and no, the source books
No.
kind of mentions it, but it's,
Well,
yeah.
there was one adventure path.
Yes, you go, please tell me about, yeah, explain
Okay,
that.
five shall be one.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yep.
the quest for five swords, and I believe uh, Shane is covering that in his one of his shows, the quest for those five swords.
Okay. Yep.
Um, anyhow, it's five shall be one, and there was supposed to be Fortune and Glory. Thanks, Leakum. You're in that, I think. Uh, there was supposed to be a third adventure in that series, and for whatever reason, it never happened. That third adventure became Greyhawk Wars. You see, so the Thelonian Peninsula
Ah,
had a
yes.
chance to
Yeah,
be,
that was ramping up to
yeah,
Greyhawk Wars when they
yeah.
released that. Yep.
At the end of the, well, no, I'm not going to spoil it, but the whole point of this adventure path was you're getting all these swords to free a imprisoned god, and it was supposed to unite the barbarian lands. And so you're going to have this huge horde of barbarians,
Yep.
I thought,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and then they didn't go anywhere with it.
Yep.
At least I don't think they
Yeah,
did.
and this is the kind of
About
the
two.
Viking Nordic kind of look feel to Greyhawk, so to
Yeah.
speak. So you can use a lot of that. They going raiding in their ships and stuff like that. So
I
that's
used to run a lot of adventures there, as a matter
yeah,
of fact,
yeah,
in the Ice Barbarians.
yeah.
My friend Jason, for many years, we did that in second edition.
Cool. Yep,
So yeah, I
yep.
definitely recommend the Barbarian North.
Yep. And that's one of the few times when I played here in California. I moved here to California and I had some raiders that came from here, and I could use my Swedish, so they were yelling and screaming in kind of pseudo
Nice.
Scandinavian Nordic Viking like speak. So that was kind of fun. So that's one area, and then I have one that I think is very forgotten and not mentioned, and that's the eastern coast of the formal Great Kingdom here. This bit here
Oh, yeah, yeah,
is
you're
very,
right.
yeah, it's part that was kind of a central part of the Great Kingdom, and you have, but the problem is, in my opinion, this is kind of a poor area for adventuring. It's not that much pure wilderness, that not that many humanoid tribes and stuff, but it's an interesting area if you want to develop, because there's not much to it. There's a lot of empty holes there that can be filled with things, so it has a lot of potential that way. So those are the, I would say, within the Flanies
Yeah,
that are not,
within the
yeah,
boundaries of the map.
yep, that
Yeah.
are not that
Hmm.
used or underutilized, I guess is the good term for it.
Yeah. At one time, the Bright Desert could have been included on that, but then
hmm
Prairie the Trader came
Exactly,
out and
came
really
kind of fleshed
put
it
a
out, and
microscope on that.
yep.
Uh,
And then of course we have your
yeah,
favorite owl list, but I kind of include that in the Bacloonish West. So yeah,
yeah, it is.
yeah.
It is.
And then you have the gigantic Sea of Dust, but that one has a fair bit of mention, but there's an enormous amount of wilderness. If you want to have wilderness
Yeah.
that you want to have galore, This area down here is where you can go. You have everything from volcanoes and demons and fire creatures or whatever can live here, and then you have all sorts of spanning, and it spans a couple of thousand miles across at least, and so it's a huge area where you can have all sorts of big monsters can live there if need
Uh,
be.
no, anyhow, going back to Great Kingdom, Ranglade's right. They did develop a lot of that in Id the Undying, without a doubt, without a doubt. Now,
Yep.
I always felt that like Rel Astro, this big metropolis on the coast, just that one city by itself could have easily been another box set
It's exactly.
or
It's like
something like
City of
that.
Greyhawk. It's one of the metropolises of the big city centers of the
Yeah,
setting. Yep. Another one is my very dear favorite is Rel Devon. It's another one that I just love. The city that
yeah,
is and Rel Devon is located here. Is Rel Devon? I put a dot there, so it's kind of it's one of
yeah.
these.
Even the Undying is such a good book that they,
hmm
yeah, could have split that into two or three smaller
Yeah.
books the size of the Marklands,
Yep. Definitely.
and
Yep.
I would have loved it. Cities of Enlightenment. Um, what was I thinking? We're talking about undeveloped areas. Oh yeah, yeah. So back to the Sea of Dust. One thing I like about Sea of Dust is if you have like a random dungeon or something you want to just drop in from anywhere, say you want to swipe something from uh, Forgotten Realms or wherever, basic D&D, some old module, and you just want it in the middle of somewhere. Sea of Dust would be a good place because
Yep.
everything's buried.
Yep.
Everything that used to be in the Suloi's empire is buried under this dust, and so you could just spend time digging in that desert forever. It's a
Yep.
good place.
Yep. So, what do we have? Any more questions? We
Any more questions?
Yep.
That covered a couple of the early ones.
I clean up the map here in
Uh,
the meantime. So, yep.
yeah. Um, so Leakum's playing in Fortune and Glory, and Shane's kind of adapting the Five Swords adventure to his own version. And the only thing I'm not really clear on, because it's on at a time where I'm at work, maybe he can answer is it set in the Barbarian North still, or is he? I think I recall something about Krakenheim, uh, or did he set it somewhere else? And then Bavix wants to know more about Radek. That's a little bitty country that I really have not used much. It's a good
It's
question.
interesting because in my Patreon I have seems to have a whole bunch of Ratic fans that are constantly pestering me to get
Huh.
Ratic stuff, and so
Interesting.
yeah, so
Like
I
a
will be
Radek,
yep.
excuse me, fan club.
Yep. So I will actually, that will be the first part of the actual continent that I promised my patrons to map.
Oh,
So yep, because it's interest. So that will be, and I've already done a few attempts that are good, but not where I want them to be. So they're not really perfect yet. So I'm still getting there. But it's one of these kind of that used to be an outpost of the Great Kingdom in their north, the northern
right
edge
on
of
a
up in
buffer between the barbarian.
exactly. Yep, the end of
Uh,
civilization in the north, at least from a Great Kingdom's perspective, and the city of Marner is up here, and further north it was barbarian country and uncivilized and stuff, and you have up here is
right.
Krakenheim up here, that I think is kind of a cool name. Yep,
That is a good name.
yep. So
I
it's
wonder if there's a real Kraken around.
exactly, but that's the yeah. So we'll
Yeah.
see. But they might have some big squid or yeah, something up there. So yeah. So this is one of these areas in the Flannies that
Ooh,
that lot.
Eastern Keep on the Borderland. If uh, if that's the Eastern Keep on the Borderland, I would say neighboring Bone March is probably your like
That's the one that could be set in several locations, I think.
Keep on the borderlands like
Yeah,
your
and I
generic
yeah I yeah
wilderness
I picked the one
sandbox
when it
adventure.
was down. I picked the one here. I placed it in the first listed location. That was the Yeomanry, and
Uh,
maybe I did it because I thought it
because
was
it's
I was mapping the area, and
remote.
yeah, and that's what people told me the first. So
Yeah,
it's actually set here on the mountainside of the
that's where
Crystal
you
Mist.
have it.
Yep.
All
So
right,
it's actually down
cool.
here at Kendall Keep and Westburn and oh, Fort Kendon and stuff. So it's down here. I'm not going to put too many spoilers, but this is
Okay.
where you can put it because a lot
Yeah.
of the locations from that module are listed here.
Um, anyhow, so yeah, they are adventuring in the barbarian. Leakum says, and one thing I
Cool.
was going to mention was I adapted the Five Swords adventure path for my friends, if anyone's still out there. But I set mine in the South Seas,
Mm-hmm.
in the hold of the Sea Princes and around, because these are ancient Sewell weapons, but that means I reasoned it as any country that has Sewell heritage is a potential place for these swords to be found. And so I was looking in other parts of the map uh, where they could be collected. Like after the events of Five Shall Be One and whatnot. Then,
Yeah.
and if you succeed in that adventure, then some other adventures, then the swords are dispatched and you can find them again. It's one of them adventures you can recycle,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Yep. So I hope that we have covered a little bit about the what adventures to get for the beginners and people who want to get into the setting and getting into a setting for the first time is always kind of a big undertaking, but you can do it in
Yeah,
in small installment and scout out your little area and start adventuring there.
yeah,
Grab one of the like the Temple of Elemental Evil adventure path and then just adventure there or the something like that or read through one little part that you like and then set some adventures there, make them up yourself and go for it, and don't hesitate to change things. Don't
mm-hmm.
see these books as bibles, meaning my campaign have to follow this. No,
I
it's
used
up
to
to
do
you.
that a lot, and it's
Yeah.
just too much hassle
Mm-hmm.
to
Yep.
keep
So
up with.
yep. So run it the way the only you're doing it right if you have fun. If you and your players have fun at the table, then you're doing it right. That's the key here. Okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
no, I was going to say, yeah, Village of Hamlet. It's great, just like literally a village start.
Mm-hmm.
Salt Marsh is another, like I said before, it's a good coastal adventure.
Yep.
If
And
you
it's
want to
set down
launch off
here. Yep.
to, seafaring or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yep.
And then also, as I mentioned before, the city of Greyhawk. If you want to get in kind of big urban intrigue, or launch from there to Castle Greyhawk.
Yep. We have mentioned Slavers is another one that is good. Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
That's another good central module
Mm-hmm.
if you want to get involved in
Yeah. And
the
yeah,
Pomage.
and I guess we have to mention the from the giants, the series when you fight giants. I'm going to mention them, and that is a set of adventures that usually DMs just love because you have big badass giants that can kill anything, and the players usually hate it. My players they never wanted to see a giant again after even coming close to these settings
Yeah,
or these adventures. So if you have a whole bunch of fighters or warrior type players that just want to go murdering hobo everything, they are the perfect enemy to put in a whole bunch of them, and you will have battles beyond anything. So that's another kind of iconic. If you want to run iconic Greyhawk adventures and feel like you've been
yeah.
there, done that, that's another one
Hmm.
that is really a good one.
On my blog, on the front page, on the side, I have a Greyhawk primer that covers a lot of what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the links is to my adventures in Greyhawk, where I rank all the published adventures in my own tier system. So, like tier 1, classic, and modules that we've mentioned. Tier 2 would be like the useful ones, and then all the, descending down to all the crap, that you should avoid.
Yep.
Yeah. So check that out if you have time.
Yep.
Let me know if you agree or disagree. Let's see. Yes, Divers is a good city. Slavers covers it, but
Yep.
it's very scant
Exactly.
info.
They're just that little
They could have
fishing
done so much
whatever
more.
pirate hideout next to
Mm-hmm.
it, and that's it. Then
Yeah,
they escape down to the
yeah.
Pomarch and stuff.
Divers should have really been like a sister product to Greyhawk.
Oh yes,
So
exactly. It's one of these big metropolises in the Flannies
yeah,
that deserves its own
I don't
write
know.
up and stuff. Yep. Yep. And
I
what
remember back in the day, it was hard to find it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you after city adventures, there are probably almost a dozen big cities and urban centers in the Flannies that you can flesh out, and you can have everything from portals, temples, sewers, and political intrigue and stuff in.
um,
Okay.
any other questions? Crazy questions? Anything on topic?
Yeah.
Greyhawk Chicago, Divers Milwaukee.
Yep.
Yeah, they both suck.
It didn't come from me. Yeah. That's good.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Let's see.
Yep. We covered this. So we
Yeah,
have yeah.
we haven't went.
I was going to say we haven't nailed down the topic for next week. So if we have any takers, now you
Okay.
have a chance to
Yeah,
pop something
yeah.
in
Anyone
chat.
want to throw out next week's topic? Right.
Yep, something that we should look into for next week. We have a whole probably about 2 dozen things that we can pick, but we haven't picked one yet. So there is a chance of digging into to nail down the next
The
topic.
silent ones. The silent ones of Q-Land are not a part of the Scarlet Brotherhood.
Oh,
Period.
okay.
Period.
Cool.
I'm just
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. That's another.
I ain't saying they haven't been infiltrated. The Scarlet
Ah.
Brotherhood, but
Yep.
no, I don't think they're the same.
Yep. So that we have one. We have secret societies of the Flannies. That's the big one. We could. Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
Ooh, Nebbiolo wants to talk about the twin cataclysms and the migrations.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and it could like draw the.
We can, yeah, we have some of the classic maps, and we can draw arrows. It's just that, especially me, I have to go back and study these topics for next week. So we should probably keep that for like 3 weeks. So
that's a very deep
it's
topic.
twin cataclysms, but it's definitely worth at least one episode.
Navix wants to talk about how he suggests I use.
Ooh, yes.
There's a lot going on with him.
Yep.
What he's done, what he's up to.
Yep. It's the
How to
Sauron,
kill him.
the master villain of the setting. So, oh, the Vecna. Yeah, that's another thing. We have to go back to Vecna and Kas and the sword and the hand and the eye, and yeah, that's another one that is so Greyhawk it could be, so to speak. And we might have lost Mike. I'm not really sure. It almost looks like we lost Mike, so we'll see. I'll keep a last look on the chat here, and I think I'm sorry, but I think we lost Mike, but we were supposed to wrap up anyway, so I guess it falls on me this week to say thank you so much for watching Legends and Lore. the second episode. And next week we will be back with something, and definitely, and we're going to yeah, IU's broke him, so we probably have to dig into IU's some next week. So we'll definitely be so. Thank you everyone for watching this episode, and we will be back next week. Thank you and goodbye.